This is a brief intro to Java variables and assignments. Let's start coding a file in our Dr. Java editor. So we're going to start coding the same way we would code anything in Java. We start with a class, public class. I'm going to call this var assign, just because that's sort of what we're dealing with. And then we're going to have our main function, again, public static void main with our string array of args. Close up our brackets. Now in here I'm going to create or declare something called an integer. And it's an int, that's a keyword. It's a primitive type in Java. We'll talk about the primitive types in a second. And I'm going to create a variable. Well, what is a variable? Really, it's just a place to store something. And I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to a value. Because this type is an integer, I'm going to set it to an integer value, 4 in this case. So then let's see what's in our integer. So I named the variable storage place. So to print out the value, I'm going to reference storage place again. Okay, let's compile. And I need to save it. And then we run it, and what do you think you're going to see? What's in here? 4. Yeah, because we set our integer to 4, prints out a 4. If we set it to something else, another integer, what should happen? We print out the new value, which is now 10, because I set it to 10 up here. Okay, so that's an example of a variable. And this is sort of the building block of a lot of code. And one other thing, so the variable is named storage place, and you see that on the left-hand side of our assignment operator. This equal sign is our assignment operator. Not to be confused with equals. If you actually want to say something is, if something is equal to something else, that's actually 2 equal signs in Java. But so on here, on this side, the left-hand side, we have the variable name. And then on the right-hand side, we have the value that we are storing in it. So if you hear L value or R value thrown around as terms, that's what they're referring to. This would be your L value on the left-hand side. This is your R value on the right-hand side. There's a little more to it than that, but that gives you a general idea of what those terms mean. Okay, so let's look at a couple more types. So this chart is from Wikibooks Java Programming, which is a really nice resource that I would suggest you look at if you're trying to find out more information on something, or just another resource to look at. So this is giving us a chart of the primitive types in Java. There's object types and compound types, but we're not going to worry about those right now. We're going to talk about those later. Right now we're just looking at our primitive types. Our primitive types are our building blocks to create other types later on. Okay, so what do we have in Java? We have something that's a byte, that's 8 bits, and then it gives us the minimum and maximum values you can store in it. Then we have a character, or a char, that's 16 bytes. And this would actually store something like they're showing over here. You can store a character, like an A, ABC, 1, 2, 3, your pound signs, percent signs, any of the Unicode characters that are available. And now we have shorts, ints, and longs, and these are all types that you would store, like we were talking about, numerical integers in. So your countable numbers, positive or negative, 0, those would all be stored in here. But now you can't store something like a fraction or a decimal point. Those would actually be done in our floating point numbers, which are float and double. And again, you're looking at these different types, and a lot of what the difference is, these are all integers, but the size, the values that you can put into it, change. So this only has 16 bits, so the range of values it can hold is a lot smaller than the long, which is 64. And this is the same for the floating points too. There's a lot more precision that you can store in a double versus a float. Then we have two other types here, Boolean and void. They're unique because Boolean will only hold things that you'd use with like Boolean operators if you're saying something is true or something is false. Those are the only two values that can be stored in a Boolean. And then we also have our void, which we've talked about before. Void is sort of this placeholder. You're not going to return anything, or you're not going to pass anything in. It's sort of our null space. So I hope that gave you a little bit of a taste of variables and assignments in Java.